things that we're going to get into. I'm going to start, I don't mind, with the topic. The first thing I want to get into is this incident that happened on the 10th, January the 10th in Killeen, Texas, where officers were called to a distress call. And they called it like a psychiatric call of a distressed man. And they claimed the officer first used his non-lethal weapon to restrain the man, but he claims it didn't work. So, of course, he had to go to his gun, and this man he succumbed to his injuries. We'll just say that. And there is so much going on in Killeen because this incident made me start to kind of delve into like all the things going on in Killeen. And I don't know, everything about it just makes me nervous, especially with all this going on now. I'm concerned. Rue, why don't you chime in on this? I know you've got a lot more familiarity with Killeen than some of us ladies. What do you think?
Because I'm from there. So when I heard the story, it was disheartening for one, because that's technically my hometown, because when I came to the States, I moved to Kempner, Texas. And Kempner is south of Killeen, and everybody knows that you don't have a lot of choices on where you go to school. So it's either I go to Lampasas or I end up going to Shoemaker or any Killeen school. So I ended up going to Shoemaker and Killeen. But it is a military town. And again, me being military, that's where my family ended up, was in Killeen. And we already know that in Killeen, there's a different type of culture. Like us being military, we kind of take care of our own families. It is you don't call the police in Killeen. It's because either they're gonna take forever to get there, or if you're still in the military, then it goes through your chain of command, and so you don't want to get in trouble on your on the military side. So you don't really mesh the civilian world with the military world, because it can cause problems for your life just in general. So it wasn't a thing to really call the police unless somebody was about to die. Like we used to think it was like the murder capital to us, because soldiers would go home, like come from deployments and then kill their wives. It was wife killer capital. And that was just, you're hearing more and more stuff now, but from my perspective, that ain't nothing new. It's not nothing new. Like, you don't call the police, especially not for a health and welfare. Like, if you do a health and welfare check, you already know that it's going to be the police being sent. The police are not equipped to deal with mental, which is really weird, especially in Killeen, because you do have a lot of soldiers and you do deal with a lot of PTSD situations. So you would think they would be trained. But again, when it comes to stuff like that, we don't really deal with the police. And then another thing that I wanted to hit on too was the fact that some of the police are actually ex-military. You have to remember that too. Like you have a culture in Killeen, and then you have the police that have, you know what, let me correct that, because this is really sensitive to me, just knowing the background of the city. It's just there's just certain things that you don't do. You don't call the police for a psych, like to get they're not trained for that. You don't call the police for a health and welfare check unless you plan on somebody going to jail. Because one, it takes forever for them to get there, and then for two, when they do get there, they got an attitude. I'm sorry, I don't care if anybody gets butt hurt, but that's how it's always been for me, like during my personal experience. So I think y'all gotta stop calling police whenever it's mental issues. You need to be able to learn how to de-escalate and not rely on police to de-escalate the situation for you, especially in this day and age. Like, we feel more threatened by the police. So if you have a trauma going on that you're trying to calm down, that's an escalation to me, especially with somebody with PTSD. Or I'm not even sure they even thought, I'm not even sure if he was actually even diagnosed. So that was, yes, I do think Killeen PD needs training. And I think a lot of the police there needs to be police reform, because they're not there. They go to school for 6 months. I don't know in New York how long the police go to school, but us going to school for hair is longer for police going to training, going to their academy. So if we more training, we get a year of training, and I have to take an additional 3 months to get another license on top of what I already have, then the police should be held accountable and trained. And I do not agree with this whole, defund the police. Our tax dollars.
I was just going to mention that and see how you felt, if you felt like this was a good category, because I don't know, I'm a little different when it comes to defund the police. I don't believe necessarily defund the police, but I think the police should not be the ones we call for every incident. I think someone who's trained in mental health and things like that should be the person that shows up for an incident such as that, because the police are not trained to deal with someone with PTSD or bipolar disorder or whatever it is, that's schizophrenia. You know what I'm saying? But someone who has a degree in mental health and also maybe can be trained as well in the justice system and things like that. Maybe that's kind of what I think of when I think of defund the police, where you don't call the same people for every incident.
So there's a confusion when it comes to that, because it's not that defunding the police it's emotional and reckless to say. I would say demilitarize the police, but you also have to realize that, again, police really go after those people that are ex-military, because they can follow orders. They were once used as weapons, so they know that they can handle high stress situations. But then on the flip side of that, it's like, okay, they may have some trauma too. So for one, police need to be trained, psychologically evaluated first and foremost. Two, we need to set out a budget for them to get adequate training, which includes cultural sensitivity and mental health sensitivity, so that they can learn and decipher how to deal with certain situations. Because, a lot of those green people could get out there and they're put in situations or demographics that they're not familiar or comfortable in, and they think of it all as triggers for them, and then they don't know how to react. So, or they react very hastily, or because they're sitting there saying, "Oh, we got to think quickly." They're not thinking rationally at that point. It's more just they're reacting, period. So they need to actually put them through real life scenarios. I like the fact that I don't know if you remember Major Payne, and they did that scenario where they put him in front of like a panel of people, of the officers, and they were like, okay, go through this and tell me how you would handle this situation. And she was like, oh, he hit me, and then he went and started smacking him. Don't you ever, I feel like that's accurate. They should do stuff like that to see if somebody's actually gonna be like that, like role play. Go through it again and again and again and again, and make sure that you're not trigger happy. Make sure that your hand is not on that gun. Make sure you're reaching for your taser instead of your weapon. Make sure it's on the right side. Go through all these things. So funding needs to be put in specific places, especially when it goes towards their education, their training, how they deal with people, especially in different demographics.
So can I just say that I do agree with defunding the police, because studies have shown that there is literally money being taken away from schools, psychiatric programs, community programs. Literally that same amount of money, if you add it up, is all being taken away and is given to the police, who then go into different communities and they respond to these situations in an inappropriate way. I don't see the problem with defunding them if you're giving the money to the appropriate resources. If you're giving the money to after school programs, to slow down the school to prison pipeline, if you're supporting social workers, because a lot of those social workers out there, I have quite a few social worker friends, and a lot of them work off the clock, because there's just not enough resources to go into paying them to continue doing what it is that they're doing and still being paid, or even giving grants to students who want to pursue that lane, of education to go into the field. Like, there's almost no incentive for people to do that. Like, you just kind of have to sign up for it and say, well, I'm just ready to take a mental being, and oh well, I know I'm not going to get paid, and I'm just going to do it because I know it's the right thing. So if you defund the police, who do you call for help? So that's, to me, more of an issue of the system that we have in this country. And I talk a lot about the system, right? Like, why is it that when you call 911, it's immediately just the police? Like, why is it that 911 operators are not trained to kind of funnel your issue to the correct
They are.
authorities? So they are. Yes, they're trained, but like, okay, better question. How come there are not more resources available for them to dole out? For example, we all know, you just said it yourself, police are probably not the best people to call for a mental health crisis. So like, why are social workers not available when you call 911? And in other countries, they do have systems like that. And the numbers of police killing citizens are way lower in other countries. So I just think it's something for us to consider. I'm not saying that police are unnecessary, and I don't think anybody with any sense would say that police are unnecessary, because you do need, obviously, some sort of law enforcement, but there's got to be a better way to funnel mental health, child abuse, domestic violence, like things like that. There's got to be a better way to address it so that it's not something that continues to happen.
Okay. Where are you on? Oh, sorry.
Okay, so my scheme. I'm on city council here in Irving, and I have thank you, Lamar, for the super sticker.
Thanks, Lamar.
I have a special needs child, and my fear is that someone will be called out for a wellness check or something like that. So what we're trying to put in place is having those social workers available, having those psychs available to come out with the police and do ride-alongs. And so it's not just saying that, oh, we don't have the resources. You have to have those social workers who want to go do that. We see like the negotiators when the bank robbers or whatever, or kidnappers are asking for ransom, that they come in and de-escalate the situation. We have to have more people who want to sign up to be trained to go into that, because that training is there. It's not a lot of people signing up for that.
Makes sense.
You also have to take into consideration that a lot of those backgrounds, that's a different degree. That's not just going to the police academy for 6 or 7 months. That's going to school for years. So a lot of people feel like, I'm going to school 7, 8 years to get this, and then y'all are only going to pay me what y'all paying the police. I'm not going to do that. So again, it is a numbers game. And then with us talking about defunding the police, that's more money that we don't have to offer them. I'm not for defunding the police. I'm for retraining. I think it needs to be constant training. Our teachers have to be retrained every year. Healthcare, we have to go and be retrained every year. Hairstylists, don't y'all have some kind of test or continuing education y'all have to do every year? So I'm not understanding why police are not pulled off every 6 months and said, hey, look, you need to take a mandatory 7-day vacation. Well, we can't call you. You need to be, we need to pay for 50% of this, send you somewhere to regroup. And then I think they need to have weekly or monthly check-ins with someone that has some type of degree that can say, hey, how are you doing? Let's look back at all the stuff that you have put into the computer that you've done this last 6 months. Are there any red flags? I think we're not holding our higher ups and law enforcement accountable. Because with me at work, if paperwork and stuff isn't funneled through correctly, I'm who they come to. When there's a breakdown on the floor, or if any of our people in other countries have issues, I'm where they come, because I should have caught it. So I feel like no one is checking in with these police. Now, I'm not absolving them of anything. I don't think we are, I don't think enough interest is being taken. I think people are, they're sweeping this under the rug, They're overlooking it. They're saying, oh, okay, it just happened once, let's let it go. I think on that very first incident or that chance of an incident, that's when we need to get involved and pull them off and say, hey, come sit down, lay on this couch, mandatory 3, 4, 5, whatever visits. Let's get this straight. The young man in Killeen, I couldn't even watch all of that. Y'all don't know how my heart breaks when I watch some of this stuff. I'm just like,
I can't watch it. I stopped watching.
It's so many other things that could have been done. I'm just like,
it's too much.
Is that our only option? Like, so you couldn't have turned around and walked off.
So the body cam wasn't released yet, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I haven't found it.
Okay, so we actually don't know. Still don't. We're assuming that he was unarmed, or we're assuming what hasn't been seen yet. So we're waiting on that. Now, when you're talking about, again, defunding police, that's exactly, somebody put a message up there, and they said, I don't think defunding, can we get that one back up, please? I don't think defunding the police means take away every dime they have. Okay, so defunding, when you defund something, you are taking money away. Like us being taxpayers, you're saying that money is coming from us and it's being taken away from the schools. It's not being taken away from the schools. One has nothing to do with the other.
It is.
It's not.
But it is, though.
It's not being taken away. Everything is budgeted according to how much dollars is coming in, right? Because even with even with our education system in different counties, it's budgeted out by counties. Mm-hmm. So you can't say that they're taking away. That's exactly how much that they budgeted out for that department. Because there's other.
But why do you budget? Why would you budget more for the police department than you would for your education system? Like, why?
Taking it away from the education system, that is very irresponsible to say that, because they're not.
That's semantics.
That's not what they're doing.
Well, at our meetings, just for sitting in the meetings, I can't say that the money was taken away or, the budget. It was how it was allocated. We get, X amount of funding from the state. Now, when all that defund the police came across, our very first one that was thrown out, if it would have passed, we would have had 37% less police on the street. Now, Irving has a reputation of having police everywhere. I don't have a problem with that. I would much rather walk outside and know that I'm going to see a police within 5 minutes than walk outside and wonder, okay, is somebody going to come and rob me because they know there's no police coming? I do think, again, this budgeting and allocating of these funds that we're doing, more needs to be put on training than what we're spending it on. Exactly. When I saw some of these people going in and in 6 weeks they were walking around the courthouse with a gun, I was like, what the hell? I had to study longer than that for my HR exam, and all I'm doing is signing papers, letting people go across the water. Like, what? And then I have an attorney friend.
I totally agree with that. I think that they do need more training, and they do definitely need better psych exams and regular routine.
And that right there is where it falls. These people are coming in and they're so numb. The psych who are giving the evals are so overloaded, and they're being pressured by our higher ups saying we need more people on the streets. Pass them. I am nowhere near a psychologist at all, and I see some of these folks
because that may not be the case. They like, okay,
it may not be the case 100% of the time, but it's more than not.
The structure is the same. The structure, I say demilitarize the police, because the structure of it is technically the same as being in the military. You have your
unpack that, because I've never been in the military, so I don't know what you mean by unmilitarized.
Okay, so the police's job is to protect and serve. Originally, when you call the police, you're looking at when you call the police, you're looking for, it's an emergency situation and you need the help, right? When they're acting as a military force, that's when they got their riot gear on and they got their helmets and they're pushing the public to abide by their will. That's what I mean by that. Then they look like weapons instead of protecting and serving their civilians. Do you get what I'm saying? So a lot of people are more fearful because they're like, oh, they're acting like they have to keep something away from somebody versus protecting to like serving the individual. Can I get that text back up? I didn't see it. Do they need more training though? Yes, they do need more training. And that's the whole point. So if you take away the funds, who's paying them? That means then it would operate off a corporate system, meaning the police can be bought. So you don't want to defund anybody. We can reform, and that would make a better that would make a better statement, I would say. Like I had this thing where I was going, and now I forgot just that quick. But it was because you said something, Lucretia, about now I can't even remember it. But it was
directly when I said about allocating and where the funds are coming from.
The counselors, the assessment. So they do get assessed. They do get evaluated, but my thing is they should be getting evaluated prior to actually entering, just like Border Patrol does a psych eval and they do a lie detector test. I think the police should be doing the same thing too. I'm not sure in different states if they do.
I don't know. I can't speak. I only know 4 or 5 officers, and from what I've been told, and so just not to put them on the line because I don't want anyone's job in jeopardy, but they have said going through psych evals, they can get through like 20, 30 minutes of it. And then the evaluator's like, oh, okay, you're a good cop. I haven't seen anything on your record. You can go. And I'm like, wait a minute. And one of the officers actually put himself on leave. He took a vacation because he was like, I can't deal with this. I'm Black. I'm married to a white woman. I have people calling my house. You know, when they see me in the street, they mad, they pissed off because of Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, you know, and he said it was just too much. And he went and was like, I need to be retrained because right now I'm pissed. I'm ready to bust somebody in the head. What do I do? And sitting here listening to this man who carries a gun every day, that is on the street every day, say this coming from inside the organization, I was like, what in the are we allowing people to do? I mean, where is the accountability? I mean, he got help, thank God, but it wasn't like it was easy for him to go and get. So when I say we need to reallocate these funds, I don't want to take the money from them, but I think they need to be in training a lot longer. I think it needs to be more than one psychological assessment, probably 3, one before you enter, one halfway through, and then one at the end. And then I think they need to be continuous.
Before we move on, really quick, I just want to read this quote to explain to y'all why I was saying what I was saying earlier from this article. So basically, New York City's proposed budget for the fiscal year of 2021, which is set to be implemented in July pending approval from the city council, includes a whopping $2 billion in cuts across multiple agencies, including education, housing, parks, health, social services, right? And the cuts are being made in response to a $9.5 billion dip in tax revenue owing to the pandemic. Cuts to the police department, meanwhile, are only 0.3% of all those cuts. So this is why I'm saying, like, you're taking money away from all other avenues. Sorry, I'm losing my microphone. You're taking money away from all other avenues that if you invest in them, you probably won't need as much policing. So that's the only thing that I'm trying to get across.
Okay.
And can I kind of, I know we've been on this for a while, so let me kind of piggyback off of what we're talking about because it kind of rolls into it. This new movie coming out by Nate Parker, which is about like an ex-Black Panther father who was also an ex-Marine who witnessed his child being killed. And there was by a white cop murdered, basically. And there were no repercussions. So he kind of took it into his own hands and kidnapped the police officer. And it's a movie basically about vigilante justice. And it kind of rolls off of what we're talking about and the cops not being properly trained and not being held accountable. And I'm excited about that.